Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America and across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you good old boys in Canada and China. We also love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October the 10th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I'm a little tired today from all the games that were on TV last night. I had to sneak around in the house and move some extra televisions down in the man cave because I got tired of switching channels, so I had multiple screens up last night, and I had to stay up into the wee hours of the night to get all the finals on everything.
Yeah, sometimes the best things happen in the wee hours of the night. Big C, it's all fair in love and war. A lot of things going on in the sports universe. Love bringing you Big C Sports. Sometime I grew up around a lot of farmers, Big C, and they always wanted the harvest. But they had to plant the seeds before they got the harvest. And I love planting seeds with Big C Sports. We're getting the harvest. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. I want to just say a lot of good news happens when you start planting things in the universe. A lot of good old farmers have always told me that in the past, Big C, and I started to believe them, and sometimes you got to go for it before you can see that harvest. I do want to say Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. Also, Big C Sports is on Xfinity Comcast television and launching soon on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and smart TVs around the universe. You'll be able to find Big C Sports. Actually, a lot of good things are happening in the sports universe. I want to just say that you can download the app. Just say Big C Sports Podcast. It's on so many platforms now around the universe. Even in Asia, Big C Sports is expanding. So I'm really happy about the growth. Technology makes things happen. I want to say also, Big C, as we talk about growth and expansion, you know a lot of farmers down south. When you guys are growing your shine, you don't just sit there and hope and pray. You gotta do something to make it happen, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got to stir the mesh, Charlton, when you get it all together, let it ferment for a while before you start cooking it in the distiller.
Yeah, a lot of good old boys have been doing that for a long time. My great-grandfather, he always went out to get something to drink, but he went to the barn. He didn't go to the grocery store like a lot of good old boys. So I really appreciate the growth happening with Big C Sports. And I want to say this primarily because of sponsorship. Nothing happens without money. You either have money or you don't have money. But no sponsor sponsors anybody that they cannot see or hear. And you don't, here's a clue I learned. Not everybody has to like you, because most people won't when you're competing with them. Streaming platforms, and I know it's the new technology, and that's part of what Big C Sports is on. Streaming platforms, connected TV. The viewership is over 100 million people, Big C. You couldn't have said that 5 years ago. Definitely not 10 years ago. Platforms like cable TV, antenna TV, those platforms are going away, as streaming and connected TV will be the way that people communicate going forward. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, just about everybody has a smart television in their home nowadays. Even a computer is considered a smart television because you can stream everything on that, as well as those huge screens that everybody have in their house. I mean, we become a mobile technology universe everybody around the world has.
Yeah, so when you hear about streaming, just keep in mind you have iHeartRadio, you have Xfinity Comcast, you have Roku TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV, Smart TV. Big C Sports is really growing by leaps and bounds. Really appreciate the opportunities talking to people to make that happen as we speak. National Suicide Hotline. For people going through issues, everybody, at some point in time, your check engine light comes on, like Clayton Kershaw check engine light came on last night. Big C, a National Suicide Hotline. You can get help if you're a military veteran, and even just a regular civilian. You call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 to get some help, Big C. Why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, this number was initially invented for our great veterans of this country because we lose so many of those great people every day due to suicide. And it's a preventable situation, Charlton, if you just lend an ear and assistance to people who have come back from a lot of these horrific events from around the world. But we also have so many citizens, Charlton, who have not been involved in wartime, but they fight a war here at home every day.
Yeah.
They fight a war against poverty, against depression, against being bullied, Charlton. And these are things that should not occur in this great country. We shouldn't have people willing to take their own lives because they don't feel that they have an outlet or some place to turn to.
Yeah.
The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there, Charlton, for people to turn to not be judged, but to have a voice and a shoulder to listen to and lean on. And we need more of that in American society. We need to be more kinder to others. We need to be more understanding to others.
Yeah.
We don't know the plight that drives people to the positions that they are in life. We become a very judgmental society based on where someone's stance is economically more than anything else socially.
Yep.
So when we reach out to those that are destitute, those who are impoverished, those who just don't have some place to go, that need to talk to somebody, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there. So people don't ever hesitate when you see somebody in trouble or you think that they might be in trouble. We think that the strongest people are the people we see that are functioning and walking around every day. We don't understand the shadow and the cloud that are over a lot of these people that need help because as Americans, we've been taught to be proud, not to show our weaknesses and our vulnerabilities. This is a situation where don't think about somebody being weak and vulnerable. Just think of it as somebody being in need with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
That's 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and you can get some help. Talking about help, there's almost 1 million people in Northern California that have been affected by these blackouts that PG&E has taken precautionary measures to prevent more fires. But we did have a fire in the East Bay town called Moraga, which if you're familiar with sports, St. Mary's College is not far from that location where that fire broke out. Because the winds blow so hard into the East Bay, if they blow over the Oakland Hills, we could have a calamity again. And that has nothing to do with the PG&E. That's just a fire. They don't know how it started, but they did get a lot of it out. But there's been so many people that have not had power in the last couple of days, and of course they're throwing away food, and they have no way to keep their houses cool as it's still hot. Big C, I still want to get your thoughts because you're down in the South. We always see hurricanes. We see these tornadoes that come and the flooding, and some people still are upset that they're taking precautionary measures. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, nobody wants to be the victim of a precautionary measure when a corporation decides that they need to do cutbacks.
Yeah.
And this is the cost of living in California when you live in some of these outlying areas, Charlton, that have excessive power usage. You got to look at a lot of the infrastructure that's outdated.
Yeah.
And when PG&E was blamed last year for some fires that were in California, they're trying to avoid that situation all over again, Charlton. It's catastrophic when you have a fire because you don't know which way that the direction the wind's going to blow.
That's
the Los
right.
Angeles Rams even canceled practice today because they had winds in excess of 50 miles an hour at their practice facility.
Wow.
So, and no one wants to be the one that suffers when a company takes some precautionary measures, but you do it for the greater need of the many.
Yeah, you got to do it for the greater need. So just a lot of people, feeling your pain. There are people in all over that are just affected. It doesn't matter what color, race, creed, income level. Mother Nature does what it wants to do. That wind, they're also saying be careful. I want to just say, when it comes to baseball, because you talked about the Rams canceling practice because of the wind, and I'm sure if we go into what happened last night in Southern California, Chavez Ravine, it was windy at a time that they couldn't afford it to happen. And we'll get into it. But number one, I want to pay up on my bet. I told you that the LA Dodgers would beat the Washington Nationals, but I also said if Clayton Kershaw pitched, the Dodgers would lose. Okay, so maybe I hate being right about that. But I lost the bet, Big C, so I have to wear the POTUS hat, Make America Great Again hat, for at least a day. I've been wearing that. People have been giving me the weirdest looks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess red is not your color when you're walking around. But, when you look at the game last night, the Dodgers got off to a great start.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why they pulled the starting pitcher. But I guess 7 innings is your maximum now in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
We very rarely see a complete game pitched any longer.
Yeah.
The Dodgers were up 3-1 when the pitcher was pulled.
Yeah, Walker Buehler.
Clayton Kershaw replaced him in the 7th inning, which looked great for the Dodgers. He was at a 1-2-3 inning.
Yeah.
Then he comes out in the 8th, Charlton. He gives up back-to-back jacks. The game is tied, 3-3.
Yep.
We're taking in the extra innings. And at that point, you can see the tenseness in the Los Angeles Dodgers, and also you can see the red bloodshot eyes that I had because I had to stay up so late here on the East Coast to watch the game,
Yeah.
Charlton. So it didn't fit me well either way. But, here it is. You get a bases-loaded situation in the 10th inning, and the ball is jacked out for a grand slam. And the rest is history because the Washington Nationals move on to the NLCS. Charlton, here's a wild card team that had not made this situation since they were in Montreal, moving back to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
They were a Canadian team, so I guess we could sing "Oh Canada."
Oh, Canada.
As part of that also, Charlton, because they have
Yeah.
2 nations rooting for them, getting their start in Montreal.
Yeah.
But, when you look at the Dodgers situation, a lot of this is going to come down on manager Dave Roberts.
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, he's made some bad decisions. 2 years ago against the Astros in the World Series, he made decisions that weren't kind to the Dodgers, and they ended up losing that series.
Yeah.
Then last year, they lose to the Boston Red Sox. They were drubbed by the Boston Red Sox. And now in the divisional series, Charlton, he makes some decisions with some pitchers, bringing them out of the bullpen that cost them the series.
Yeah.
But, when you look at Rodgers, he's been the winningest manager in the National League over the last 5 years. He's averaged 98 victories a year over the last 5 years. And then he also set a franchise record in this past season with 106 wins.
Yeah.
So how would you replace somebody like that? I know people get disgruntled. They say, okay, 3 years and we've come up short with all these wins and no championship. Is it time to move on from Dave Roberts?
No.
I hope that the Dodgers do it, Charlton, because he has a great relationship with all the players. He understands on and off the field these players. And to make a hasteful move like that would be bad for the organization.
It'd be bad for baseball. You don't replace people who've been to the World Series back to back. Nobody else can say that but the Dodgers, Big C. So to get rid of him would be like throwing away a car, because you don't throw away a Ferrari because it ran out of gas. You just get some more gas to put in it. Los Angeles, it's amazing. I would say the mecca of sports, at least for teams that are having something to say about championships, Big C, outside of Boston. Howie Kendricks of the Washington Nationals finally ended the dreams, that California dreaming, and the streak of playoff series futility in grand fashion. Kendricks hit a tie-breaking grand slam in the 10th inning of the Nationals, boosted by the lightning rally against Clayton Kershaw, and beat the Dodgers 7-3 Wednesday night in Game 5. They advanced to the NLCS starting Friday against St. Louis. Now, Big C, Monday morning quarterbacks are always undefeated. They always are. That good old boy Howie Kendrick, he would have been the GOAT in a bad way because he had missed a couple of easy plays in this series. It's just like the fate of the universe turned it around so he could win, at least the reason they hit that grand slam. I got to go to something, though, because sometimes we call it intuition. Good old boys down south call it mother's worth for a lot of women who have that intuition. And it's easy again. Monday morning quarterback's the easiest position in sports to fill because everybody has an opinion. Clayton Kershaw is not who he used to be. We've been saying that for the last 3 years. I like Clayton Kershaw, what he did in the past, but just like a Ferrari, when the check engine light comes on, you can get it fixed. But the Dodgers tried to hide it. I don't blame Roberts for putting in Kershaw. I think it came from higher up because he is the prodigal son of the LA Dodgers, and they want to make sure that he gets them some glory. That's why they held him out. Buehler went 7 innings almost, 6 2/3, and they brought him in so he could have his name in the paper. But that's not Roberts' fault, Big C. My opinion, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at baseball, and baseball is so analytics-driven nowadays, guys that are working on stats, if the guys that are running the analytics for the Dodgers are looking at where Clayton Kershaw is, who's a guy in the postseason who is 4 games under 500.
I know.
As a pitcher, then you want to run with the analytics. You don't put in Clayton Kershaw.
Right.
But from a media perspective and a fan perspective,
That's right.
everybody is thinking that the guy who has been the greatest regular season pitcher over the last 6 years in the National League is a guy who can get it done in the postseason. That just has not been the luck of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You can't always say what a guy is doing during the regular season.
Right.
he's going to do in the postseason. You very rarely get the regular season MVP succeeding in the postseason, winning a championship or even putting his team in that position, even a Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah.
And that's been Clayton Kershaw's history over the past 6 years, Charlton, is that he's just not got it done in the postseason. So you got to look at the analytics when it's even coming to pitching, not just hitting.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Dodgers made the biggest mistake last night, going with the baseball mind instead of the analytical mind.
That makes a lot of sense. And you said something else that came true, and that's why I'm wearing this MAGA hat, Big C, and people keep staring. Why is a black man wearing Make America Great Again? It's always been great when you, at least based on the Constitution, even though it hasn't been practiced that way. The LA Dodgers, 13 all-time in the history of baseball to win 106 or more games and not make a World Series. The 1998 Braves did it, and also the 2001 Seattle Mariners did it, Big C. So it's not as if, this is rare territory, but I don't blame Roberts, and I think I already gave you my reason why, but I want to play two sides of the fence. At some point in time, when you play people with the big money, and I told you they were hiding Kershaw the last 2 years, but media kept saying they can't wait to get Kershaw. They actually telegraphed that he may start. I also told you that Jensen has a leak in his giddy up. His check engine light's been on lately too, Big C. But it's one of the highest paid closers in baseball. I thought Roberts did it right with Jensen, but he should have brought in Jensen to help close. He should have used his closers, not Clayton Kershaw. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you bring in a starting pitcher in a closing role, that's not his normal modus operandi.
Right.
And so the rhythm that they've caught late in the game is different. You hope that when he's coming in and he's fresh, that he can able to get the ball over. But you're bringing in a breaking ball pitcher instead of a fireball pitcher, Charlton. It's like when Aroldis Chapman comes into a game for the Yankees.
Amazing.
You're bringing in a guy that's going to be hurling it 100 miles an hour across the plate. You're bringing in a guy who's going to be pitching against guys who've been standing out in the field 8 and 9 innings, Charlton, who may not have the moxie on the mound.
Right.
At the plate where they would have had their concentration may have waned just a little bit.
Yeah.
But with Kershaw, you're going to get the breaking pitches.
Yeah.
You're going to get the slider and you're going to get the curveball.
Yep.
So batters can sit back and wait on it. And you saw in all three of those home runs, they were all breaking pitches.
Yeah.
The batters knew what was coming from Kershaw.
Yeah.
Those are his go-to pitches. And late in the game, you want a slower pitch coming to the plate, and that's what Kershaw was delivering.
Yeah, it's amazing how Washington kept battling for the LA Dodgers. It's always next year, 7th straight National League West title, 12 walk-off wins, which is the most in Major League Baseball. And you think about it, on the other side of the mountain, you had the Nationals. They had scored more runs than anyone in baseball past the 8th inning. You look at Bellinger, he batted .305, 47 home runs, 115 RBIs, but in the postseason, his average is only 178, Big C. Kershaw, 16-5, 3.03 ERA, but as you already mentioned, in the postseason, his ERA is 4.43. That's not that good. Last World Series title, 1988 for the Dodgers. Their free agents, Hyun-Jin Ryu and Rich Hill. I love what you said. Keep Roberts, because he's still the consistency that keeps that ship together. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, going into this game last night, the Dodgers as a team are only batting .212 in the postseason.
Yeah.
So when you think about the national pitchers facing them, they had been able to keep them in check. They had not allowed a lot of runs.
Yeah.
And even last night, they only had 3 runs, Charlton. 2 of those came on a home run.
Yeah.
So the pitching staff for the Nationals were able to do what they were supposed to do in that game, holding them to those runs, Charlton, and they didn't score, after the middle innings of the game.
No.
So the Washington Nationals were the team with the momentum, playing without pressure.
Yeah.
They sit there and they bought their time, and the Dodgers were a team that were teetering on the edge of frustration when you look at it, because here it is, they're being antsy all night long, saying, okay, we got to get back, because we've been the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
In the National League all season long. We wrapped up the division by the All-Star break the Dodgers had.
Yep.
So they were in coast mode. So you have to wonder, when teams slow down and take their foot off the throttle, how do they kickstart themselves all over again?
Yeah.
And they got swept, 3 games.
Yeah.
When you think about it, they were up 2-0 going back to D.C.
That's right.
And the Nationals swept them at home. and came out and knocked out Game 5 in Chavez Ravine.
Well, it's amazing how sports is, and it's always about who can swing the bat the best. So congratulations, Washington Nationals. I think POTUS is reinvigorated now because he saw that even the underdog can win, but we don't know what's going to happen in politics. Major League Baseball. We're going to swing it down south, Big C, where all that heat and humidity exists. You have the St. Louis Cardinals. You know, the Blues just celebrated Lord Stanley's Cup, Big C. I don't know if one thing can lead to another, but the Cardinals, you got to realize that this team has been there many times before. The St. Louis Cardinals, they went down to Atlanta, and they blasted their way into the NLCS, Big C, and they took it about 13-1. It's hard to score 13 runs in 2 games. They did it in 1, and they did it in 10 runs in the first inning. So give me your thoughts on the state of baseball in Atlanta. The St. Louis Cardinals, they turned the dial into a giant pinball machine, it looked like last night. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Atlanta Braves were a team that were in a state of shock, as well as the fans. They hadn't even got their butts in the seat. Yeah. And you looked around, and they were up 10-0. I thought it was a football game, and I realized that St. Louis no longer had a football team, and the St. Louis Cardinals were playing chalk.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, they scored 10 runs in the first inning and never hit a home run.
Wow.
They sent 14 batters to the plate last night in the first inning.
Yeah.
An epic inning. These are the most runs ever scored in a postseason single inning to start a game, Charlton, in baseball history. This is a game that's been around for 125 years as you think about it.
Yeah.
So as we think about the status of Major League Baseball in the city of Atlanta, I know a lot of fans were blaming Raul Acuna Jr. In that first game because he had a lapse in judgment and didn't hustle on a fly ball, Charlton. He thought that was out of the ballpark, even though he came back in the 8th inning and hit a home run to bring the Braves within striking distance.
Right.
And even last night's game, Charlton, first baseman Freddie Freeman made an error on a play when the Braves were just down 3 runs.
Yeah.
If he had been able to field that ball cleanly and throw out the runner at first base, who knows what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
But there'll be no media criticism of Freddie Freeman on his inability to make the play at first base and having an error that extended the inning like it was on Raul Acuna Jr. when he made a lapse in judgment and didn't hustle.
Yeah.
Both plays were the same to me in depicting the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
But when you look at what the St. Louis Cardinals did.
Amazing.
This is a team that's been there before. They're led by their catcher, Yadier Molina, who eventually will be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
But this was a team that had a chip on their shoulder. They weren't expected to get to this point, but they dominated the National League East champs, Charlton, who had the second best record in the National League. And when you go to an opposing team's ballpark, and you think about it, the series now, the NLCS, is going to start in St. Louis.
Yeah.
That arch has seen some great epic series over its time, Charlton, from old Busch Stadium to the new Busch Stadium that they have there now.
Yeah.
The Redbirds are a very hot team. I like to watch the Nationals' chances because this is a team that's played with adversity and been the underdog all year.
Yep.
But the Redbirds at home may have something magical in St. Louis.
I just got to ask you, because, you know, as a restaurateur, does Redbird taste good or is it gamey, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it depends on how you marinate it.
It depends on how you marinate it. So at SunTrust Park, obviously, by the time the Braves, got out, I mean, it's amazing. Before they came up to bat, they were just knocked out already. It's almost like a first-round knockout in a boxing round or someone being tapped out in an MMA fight. So I want to just get your thoughts on something, because Atlanta still has a really good team, as well as the Dodgers do as well. Playing your cards right, you think about the Cardinals, 10 runs in the first inning, most runs ever in a postseason first inning, tied for the most runs scored by any postseason winning team. You got to go back to the 1929 Athletics, the 1968 Detroit Tigers, and the 2002 Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The Cardinals' most run in any first inning since 2005. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to change, rosters with Atlanta. That doesn't mean you shouldn't not have the manager come back. All that means is what you've been saying for many times, and now I'm finally understanding. The teams that are on the road, they have fewer distractions, and so they can play more loose, Big C. That make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, when you're at home, you always have a lot of demands from friends and family and people wanting to get into a ballpark.
Yeah.
Snedeker's done a marvelous job as the manager of the Atlanta Braves. He was the manager of the year last year in the National League, and he had a better season this year.
Yeah.
He has some great young ball players, Charlton, that are going to be long and consistent all-stars in that lineup there in Atlanta.
Yep.
But the pitching just wasn't there in the postseason for the Braves, and that was their Achilles heel. They were hitting the ball, but in this game last night, you get down 10 runs in the first inning, you become demoralized.
Oh, yeah.
There's only two types of baseball that you can play.
Yeah.
You can play long ball or you can play small ball. Small ball is that you're constantly trying to move batters in the scoring position.
Yeah.
You were never in a position last night, if you were the Braves, where you could sacrifice or bunt and move players over playing for 1 run in an inning or 2 runs in an inning, because you were in such a deficit.
Yeah.
Not only were you in a deficit score-wise, you were in a deficit emotionally.
Yeah.
So all the wins were taken out of the Braves' sails in the first inning. As they sit there, it's like, how do we come back from a 10-run deficit?
Yep.
We haven't done that all year long.
Yeah.
And before the game was over, they had lost 13-1.
Yeah, it's almost like being punch drunk in the first round. We've seen it before, and that's what I love about sports. Sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry, and you can see why, and that's why I love bringing it to you on Big C Sports. So we're all set in the NLCS. It happens Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's going to be on TBS, so Turner Broadcast Network, the Nationals versus the Cardinals. You know, you talked about the arch in St. Louis and all the beer that runs through, I guess, that Mississippi River. Big C, sometimes it's not just water running through the Mississippi. A little bit of fact about the arch, it was actually constructed in order for them to complete the welding of the arch. It had to have the sun heat up the atmosphere to a certain temperature so it could bend easier, and that's when they formatted the arch and it came into existence. It's one of the wonders of the world, Big C. So I really appreciate what's going on in that great city of St. Louis. Should be some great baseball. I want to do what's called the thonks that we have coming up on the Big C Timeout. We got a lot of sports to cover, and I want to hit that after the Big C Timeout. We hope that you'll take that Big C Timeout with us and come back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, and soon you'll be able to follow Big C Sports on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire Stick, also Android TV, and many smart TVs around the universe. Also want to welcome in China. It has some Big C Sports hits from China. Really appreciate that. I want to get into something that's always important, because we always acknowledge, African American history. We appreciate everybody, but doing what was called the Eurocentric history taught before civil rights was passed, and Plessy versus Brown versus Board of Education, Plessy versus Ferguson, you really didn't hear much about Black American history. So that's why I really talk about it so much. I want to go into women's gymnastics. Simone Biles, she did a great job, Big C. She picked up her 5th world championship today, and this is a young woman that represents a race of people that, for the most part, are absent from the events in the Olympics. Your thoughts?
Well, if you think about 20 years ago and the participation of African-American women on the world stage in gymnastics, it was basically non-existent.
Yeah.
But as the world has witnessed the greatness of Simone Biles over the last 6 years, Charlton, Simone Biles might be the most dominant athlete in the world over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
When you think about her accomplishments, 6 consecutive world championships, you cannot find another athlete around the world that has accomplished that feat. Everybody talks about Tom Brady winning 6 Super Bowls.
Right.
But it's been almost 2 decades for him to accomplish that feat.
Yeah.
Simone Biles has done it in 6 short years. Michael Jordan, 6 NBA titles. Took him almost a decade to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Simone Biles, 6 short years. You can't find any other athlete on the face of the planet, individual or team-wise, that has been as dominant. She's won every individual title competing in all these world championships and the Olympics, Charlton.
Yeah.
And not only that, she has propelled her team to world titles.
Yep.
So when you think about an athlete showing up, I know everybody looked at Michael Phelps when he was competing on the world stage and the number of Olympic gold medals that he had. Took him a long time to accomplish that, over 3 Olympics and many years.
Yeah.
But as I look at Simone Biles, the diminutive African-American gymnast out of Houston, she has just gone out. She's captivated the world. And when you look at her, there's nothing that's negative in her life, Charlton.
No.
She was adopted as a child along with her younger sister. She was reared by an interracial family, Charlton. But she has exploited the world and taken advantage of that oyster and taken the pearl out of it.
Yep.
She has gone out. She's been a charismatic young lady representing the African-American culture and the United States with great character.
Yeah, she has done it with great character. And just for young women all over this country, it's great when they can look up and see someone who looks like them. I know women of color, really we can say that we see a lot of African Americans dominating sports now, but prior to the 60s you didn't see that because people just wouldn't give you the chance. So I wish her nothing but the best. I also want to touch on some WNBA because tonight you look at the WNBA finals, the Mystics versus the Sun, and it's amazing how these women again are vanguards for young girls all over the sports universe. I know a lot of times we talk about boys, and boys can play Pop Warner football. There's no Pop Warner football for girls. Boys can play flag football. I think some girls play flag football or Power Puff football. A lot of girls get into that. But girls are very strong. Most of them will go to college not based on trying to become a wealthy athlete. If they get a scholarship, that's great. But most are academically driven. I want to get your thoughts tonight because it's a great time. We talked about NBA basketball. There was a time you had to watch the NBA basketball at nighttime, Big C. Game 5 for all the marbles tonight. WNBA championship. Women's professional basketball. Big C, what does that mean to women around the universe?
Well, as we look at the growth of the WNBA, we think about a professional organization that's less than 20 years old, Charlton, that has risen to the heights that it has risen to. It's a Game 5 for all the marbles tonight in Washington.
Yeah.
But you think about the NBA. 20 years into the NBA, Charlton, they weren't playing in prime time.
Right.
50 years into the NBA, they were not playing in prime time. But yet the WNBA is less than 20 years old, and they're playing in the prime time.
Yeah.
This is going to be an epic final, Charlton, Game 5. When we think about these teams throughout the series, they've been separated in totality by less than a point and a half.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that from a betting perspective, this is a game that's built for Las Vegas. Who's going to win? We think about the Sun. They took Game 4 when the Mystics had them on the rope because they eliminated them to even out the series. Now the Mystics have to go home. Elena Della Donna has been banged up with a herniated disc. She's the league MVP and the Mystics' leading player. But this shows what team sports is all about.
Yeah.
The Mystics is going to get one final chance at home to capture the title. They were runners-up last year in the WNBA Finals. Can they get over the hump this year?
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the fact that we can watch it on TV. There's still some games in baseball that you can't watch on regular TV. You got to have a cable set up, and we told you streaming's taking over everything, especially with the 100 million plus pure viewers that we have subscribed to streaming or connected TV. Big C Sports becoming part of that as well. I want to just say congratulations to all the young women out there that are role models. I know some men say they don't want to be role models, but you rarely hear female athletes getting in trouble. So if anyone can be a role model, I'd rather look to the women because so many men have had, just issues. I'm not saying women don't have them, but just not as much. So congratulations for that. I want to get into tonight's NFL football, Big C. Thursday night football. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about Thursday night football, but you do have the Patriots 5-0. They scored 155 points. They've only given up 34 points on the season. You look at the Giants, they're 2-3. The Giants have only scored 97 points, but they've given up 125 points. Big C, fighting out of the great Northeast. Two great teams, but one is actually undefeated. The other's just 2-3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the New England Patriots and the stance that they're in, they may have one of the greatest defenses all time in NFL history.
Yeah.
And you talk about the putrid number of points that they've given up thus far through 5 games to remain undefeated.
Yeah.
The Giants made a midseason change at quarterbacks. 3 games ago, they changed it with the Daniel Jones to bring more mobility and a liver arm to the offense, which is giving them results. They're 2-1 since he's become the starter. They were 0-2 prior to him taking over. But as I look at the New England Patriots on the flip side, you have Tom Brady and company. Both teams are decimated in the receiving corps tonight. They're going to be without key elements of their offense. The Giants are without their two top running backs, in Dahlman and Barkley. They're not playing. You look at Shepard. He's not going to play. Ingram's not going to play at tight end for the Giants. So as you look at Daniel Jones and his weapons tonight, if Daniel Jones is to make a statement in the NFL that he is there and he is here forever and he's the guy of the future for the Giants, this is the opportunity for him, playing against one of the greatest defenses in the NFL that we've ever seen in modern time. He has a decimated offense with receivers and running backs missing from the lineup, and he's facing this Patriots defense. Now, we know on the flip side, when we look at Tom Brady, he's most likely going to be without Philip Dorsett tonight. Gordon, is questionable for the game. Edelman has the rib situation. Tight end is always up in the air with the Patriots since Gronk retired. But as we look at Tom Brady, in his career at Foxborough against first and second year starting quarterback, he's 18-0. He has not lost to a first or second year starting quarterback at Foxborough since he's become the starter in New England.
That's amazing.
So this is going to be an epic uphill battle. I know everybody will go back and say, well, the Giants beat them twice in the Super Bowl. That was a decade ago when they won their Super Bowl. And there's nobody left on the Giants in the starting lineup from either one of those games, Charlie. So this is a whole new lineup, whole new era. Tom Brady has always been Tom Brady, but this is a trap game. If the Patriots are to lose a game this year, it could be this one tonight.
It's amazing. It is raining in Foxborough tonight. New York's up in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and it's amazing that you just brought up the two times they faced each other in the Super Bowl many moons ago. The Giants are the team that prevented the Patriots from being the second undefeated team start to finish since the Miami Dolphins. So we'll see what happens tonight. Tom Brady, them good old boys from New England, and also Daniel Jones. I don't think you can look at how good this defense is and not say they're one of the best. I understand we've had the Purple People Eaters, Big C. We had the Steel Curtain. You had the monsters from the Midway. We had so many people. A fistful of gold. The 49ers had theirs, but they're 5 championships, Big C. And I just want to get your thoughts on one more thing. 4 championships going on 5 Super Bowls, though. What makes... Tom Brady's older. They say people slow down. We talked about Clayton Kershaw slowing down, doesn't have that 98-mile-per-hour pitch. He's more around 89 and 90. Tom Brady's slowing down, too. But the defense that you just said is one of the best you've seen. That still flies under the radar. And I want to get your thoughts why defense can be that good, less than 40 points given up in 5 games, and they're still not the marquee of that defense media-wise. Your thoughts?
Well, because you basically have a lot of no-names on that defense. You don't have all-star caliber players from a media perspective. You don't have the big market names on the Patriots defense. But if you look at the defense, you said that the Patriots have given up 38 points on the season this year. You have to account 14 of those points to the Patriots offense. So this is a defense through 5 games that have given up an abysmal 24 points. That's all the Patriots defense has given up. The team has given up 38, but the Patriots defense has given up 24. That is a record pace that they're on NFL-wise. The only team to give up less than 100 points in a regular season were the 1973 Miami Dolphins. The year after they had the perfect season, they even had a better team. They just lost 2 games that year. So as I look at what the Patriots are doing with so many interchangeable parts on defense, they can bring 8 guys in the box. And of that 8 guys, you only know that 2 of them potentially will rush the passer. Everybody else can drop back. So it creates a lot of deception of what they do defensively. And with a young quarterback, he has to process that real quickly tonight against this Patriot defense. And it's going to cause a lot of problems for Daniel Jones early in this game. Expect a lot of blitzing from the Patriots, though.
And I don't want to get the Patriots, Coach Belichick, mad at me. They've only given up 34 points, Big C. 4 points is a lot for them good old boys in Las Vegas. 34 points they've given up. So look forward to seeing a great defense. Sometimes we're not focused on that as much as we should be. Big C, something happens down in the Southwest. On Saturday, it's called the Red River Shootout between Oklahoma and them good old boys from Texas. Oklahoma and Texas, it's amazing. But it's been personal between quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, you have Thomas Lott, and now Jalen Hurts. These two great programs that are always competing and recruiting for the same talent. Those quarterbacks that I just brought up, give me your thoughts on why it's such a personal thing, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, those 4 quarterbacks that you named are all Texas natives. And they were recruited by the University of Oklahoma and got away from the University of Texas. But they come back to this heated rivalry, Charlton, and played in the Cotton Bowl in front of family, friends, and folk.
Yeah.
And they've been successful in coming back to the Cotton Bowl, Charlton, over the years in this great rivalry. And now Jalen Hurts is the latest of that.
Yeah.
Thomas Lott was from Texas. Baker Mayfield was from Texas. Kyler Murray was from Texas. Jalen Hurts was an all-state player in Texas, and his dad's still a coach there.
Yeah.
Went off to the University of Alabama via Oklahoma. Now he's there. And now he's coming back, Charlton. He's the latest in this storied rivalry of the Red River Shootout, Charlton. Yeah. And he has a chance to etch his name in the history as those other 3 quarterbacks have.
Well, that's amazing. Looking forward to that. But, today's Thursday because sometimes I get my math. I think, did I eat too many collard greens and make me pass out? Because last night we had NCAA football. College football, Appalachian State, they remained undefeated as they topped the University of Louisiana Lafayette by the score of 17-7. It was a rematch of the Sun Belt title game. Zach Thomas scored twice on 7-yard sneaks in the last, coming with the 1:56 remaining on the clock, and Appalachian State beat Louisiana Lafayette 17-7. Big C, it was on Hump Day. On Hump Day, Wednesday night, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about it as the fortunes of Appalachian State goes, Charlton, and, how they got national acclaim a few years ago when they beat Michigan in the Big House.
That's right.
And that was basically the end of Lloyd Carr's tenure there at Michigan. And you think about them going undefeated that season as well as they're undefeated this season. There's another coach at the same time when Appalachian State is having success that is under the gun at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
Can't afford to lose many more games this year, Charlton. He has games against Ohio State, Michigan State, Notre Dame that are left on the schedule. He has a chance that Appalachian State can go undefeated. He may be without a job in Michigan.
I think they should keep that good old boy unless he wants to go to more money in the NFL. Friday night football, you think about it, football is almost 7 days a week now. No wonder it's $1 billion business, Big C. The Colorado Buffaloes 3-2 versus the Oregon Ducks 4-1. And the last time the Colorado played the Oregon Ducks, Steve Montez was making his first start. And think about this. First start in a bit of Buffalo's history. Montez, then a redshirt freshman, subbing for the injured quarterback Cephalo Lufau. He threw for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. But think about this. He also ran for 135 yards and another score in a 41-38 upset victory over the Oregon Ducks. Big C, it was back in 2016. Your thoughts?
Well, the same 2 quarterbacks are facing each other again tonight. Justin Herbert was the quarterback for the Ducks at that time, Charlton, and he's still the quarterback for the Ducks. This is a game that, one of those trap games. It's a conference game with Colorado coming in. And so the Oregon has had problems against quarterbacks that are highly mobile.
Yeah.
And that's been an Achilles heel. We saw what happened to them in the opening game against Auburn with freshman Bo Nix. The mobility that he put on that Oregon defense, they just were not able to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Could Oregon be in trouble in a conference game tonight?
I always ask you about SEC football. I know you cover it religiously. Maybe because you have so many of the fans buying the barbecue down south and the bird and the duck and all the, whatever else, the possum, all that stuff you guys eat, Big C. But I think a problem with Pac-12 football is here you have a team in the Oregon Ducks that you had slated preseason, to win the conference championship or at least the Pac-12 North. And now you're playing them on a Friday night when people are still at work, when kickoff is happening, or on the East Coast they're going to bed. And now, why not play your marquee games on a Saturday? You knew the schedule coming into the season. They change schedules all the time depending on how teams are stacked, Big C. That's the Pac-12's problem. They're competing against high school football, Big C's Friday Night Lights. They're competing against people who are still at work. And they're not letting people get home and relax on a Saturday to see their marquee program. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, but also, if you're looking at putting Oregon up against the top 10 teams in the country, Charlton, how would they fare when you're looking at a national audience? Would they prefer to see a top 10 matchup, or would they prefer to see Oregon, who's not in the top 10, facing a team that's not even ranked?
Well, like the farmers told me, if you want to see the harvest, you got to plant the seeds. You plant the seeds by letting the East Coast media see that you are the real deal. Speaking of East Coast, Virginia Cavaliers, they're 4-1 versus the Miami Hurricanes. How about those Hurricanes? Oh, that's the Cowboys. Miami Hurricanes 2-3, Atlantic Coast Conference, Coastal Division, has 7 teams, and there are different division championships in each of the last 6 seasons. Virginia is the outlier, but it might be the Cavaliers' turn when you think about it. They pushed Notre Dame. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're the only one of the teams, Charlton, that haven't won that Coastal Division championship. They had an undefeated season until they ran up against the Fighting Irish and Notre Dame, and they were ahead at halftime, and Notre Dame took control with their defense in the second half and outscored Virginia.
Yeah.
So Virginia's going to be smart in coming into this game. Miami has struggled under Manny Diaz. They just have not been able to put together a talent-laden team like they used to do back in the 80s and early 90s, Charlton. So this has been a rebuilding once again for Miami. I like Virginia in this game to dominate.
Give me your thoughts, though, because we always talk about, farmers like to plant seeds where they have fertile ground, Big C. If they don't have enough fertile ground, they'll take some horses and some cows, and they have this thing called fertilizer. I don't know. I mean, it comes out of the natural way, Big C. And so you talked about, culling, how you go and get the best of the crop, and they'll take the best of the crop and send it to the market. The rest, they'll use it as fertilizer. University of Miami, also Florida State. You have Florida, and even Central Florida, they had a hitch in their giddy up lately. But you can't find a better state for high school talent than Florida and California. I would say even more so than Texas. Why is Miami and also Florida State, which were dominant programs, why are they struggling against lesser populated programs, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you can ever say that an NCAA program now is lesser populated. Because as you look at the landscape of television, that is what has created equality in sports, even in college football. When you look at those programs when they were at their height back in those years, Charlton, and Florida State has been dominant since, I believe, that 2013 championship team that they had. They were always on national television. Even under Bobby Bowden years, they were always on national television. If you look at those great runs that the University of Miami had, they were on national television. Players wanted to be seen on national television, just as we talked about the Oregon game. Oregon's best chance of being seen all across the country on national television is playing on a Friday night, playing early enough where the East Coast crowd can see them. That's where the players are going. When you talk about players moving around, wanting to be somewhere where they win, well, if you're winning and you're on television, you're going to get the elite athletes. They're not going to a school just based on name anymore. Nick Saban is not getting everybody just because they're Alabama. He's getting players because they're Alabama and winning. And as you look across the landscape, as programs escalate and stay in the top 10, this is the reason why they always get the elite athletes.
I want to get Big C's thoughts, and I like what you're saying. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the status of college football's Power 5 conferences. I know we'll go down some previews on Friday's show to talk about what teams are playing whom. But I want to just, because it's so regionalized, and we talked about people cutting the cable at home and going streaming, already over 100 million viewers that watch connected TV or streaming in some form or fashion. Big C Sports is part of that. Really appreciate that. But if I just swing you out to the West Coast, just give me a bird's eye view of the perception, what the conference is doing right and what the conference is doing wrong, and then I ask you on the other conferences coming up. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Pac-12 is insignificant on the landscape of the Power 5 because the two significant teams in the conference, UCLA and USC, are doormats. They are not doing anything to turn anybody on. They went away from what made them populous programs back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, Charlton. They no longer recruit the top flight athletes. They don't have a sexy coach. And until either one of those teams start winning, Charlton, Pac-12 football will be insignificant regardless of who wins the conference.
Let me bring it a little bit to the Southwest. What is the state of the Southwest Conference, now known as the Big 12? I still think they should keep it to the Southwest because they could add more teams without changing the number. I guess it didn't hurt the Big 10. They got 19 schools. Give me Big C's thoughts on the state of the Big 12 Conference. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you look at the Big 12, Oklahoma has carried the mantle in the Big 12, Charlton, really for the past decade. You had the quarterbacks that have come out of there, the past two Heisman Trophy winners, and you have one now that's in the Heisman Trophy race. You've also had a program that has played in the national championship race, Charlton. Texas is always significant because it identifies that state that's a huge talent base.
Yeah.
They have a program that's trying to get back to national prominence, but you have a team that has consistently been in the college football playoffs in Oklahoma.
Well, that's very well said. I want to get Big C's thoughts as we go up to the north. And I want to ask you, and again, we always laugh at the Big Ten. You know, Gene Smith doesn't know how to count money, but he knows how to cash the check, $2 million of his salary. Doesn't want athletes getting paid. Give me Big C's thoughts on the state of the Big 12, actually Big 10 conference. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, the Big Ten conference, Charlton, really is the most notable conference in America when it comes to football. When you think about the significance of those universities, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, teams that have always been in the forefront, and even Penn State now, one of the newer members of the conference. I know they adopted Nebraska a few years ago, but they've always been in the hunt for the national championship. If you look at the college football playoffs, Ohio State won the inaugural one. And so this is a team that this is a conference that have always put teams in play that can compete on the national scale.
That's very well said. I was not aware that Ohio State won that original, but that's very good knowledge. I now want to swing it more over to the East Coast and even part of the Southeast. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the ACC conference because they've been known historically as a basketball power, but their team has gotten into the National Football Championships over the last couple of seasons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you look at the ACC and how it is played, Florida State was dominating under Bobby Bowden. Then they went to Jimbo Fisher and they won a national championship with him, Charlton, out there in the Rose Bowl years ago. And you look at the climb of Clemson. They've been in every one of the playoff series, Charlton, that has been there over the last 4 years, winning 2 of the titles. So when you look at the ACC's presence on the national scale, they are a branded product now, Charlton. They are recognized on the national scale. If you think about comparing East Coast, West Coast, you know, the West Coast, the Pac-12, can't even hold a candle right now to the ACC in football just on Clemson alone.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens, Big C. I want to close out Big C's thoughts on college football Power 5. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the status and the state of the SEC, Big C. Your thoughts?
The SEC speaks for itself, Charlton. When you think about the total number of national championships that have come out of the SEC over the last 20 years, you can go back to Steve Spurrier at Florida, who started that run, Charlton, and we've seen it move throughout the conference. We've seen LSU win it with Nick Saban. We've seen Nick Saban win at Alabama. But we've seen Auburn win national championships. So as you think about a perennial power conference, it is the SEC when it comes to college football this modern time. And every year they have a presence in the college football playoffs. They are a national brand. Right now they have 4 teams in the top 5 in the country. No other conference can boast of that. So when you think about football dominance, it is the SEC.
Well, that's very well said. And I love the fact that we can cover all these great programs and the great things that are happening as teams are fighting for a conference championship and a spot in the National College Football Playoffs. I also want to say that Big C Sports, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on TV, Xfinity, Comcast Television. The apps that I love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the talks we're having with launching Big C Sports soon on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire Stick TV, Android TV, and smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the growth we're having with Big C Sports. Big C, I want to close out in the final several minutes. I know we talked about baseball. Yeah, the Dodgers got beaten. It was Clayton Kershaw. His check engine light came on. But I don't think it was Robert's thought to put him in. I think that came from a power higher than him because he's their prodigal son. And also, congratulations to the Nationals. Tonight we have them good old boys down in Houston. They're playing Tampa in the best of 5. And the winner will go on in the ALCS to face the Yankees, Big C. Give me your thoughts. I know we don't give out scores, but Houston did jump out to an early lead, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as you look at the Houston Astros at home, Charlton, you're talking about the top 2 records in the American League. The Yankees already swept the Minnesota Twins. Houston is trying to stave off the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays have been hot. They went home and they swept the Astros in that 2-game series down in Tampa. Now they come back to the Dome in Houston. Seeing if the Astros can close it out, Charlton. This game is all about pitching tonight. You know that the Astros are going to come with some dominance on the mound. The Rays, can they stay in? Can they keep those hot bats of the Rays cool? I mean, the Astros cool at home. They were able to keep them cool down in Tampa with their sea breeze coming in. Now that they got them back in that heat and humidity of Houston, can they slow them down?
Well, we'll see what happens down there. I want to close out 2 more stories tonight. You talked about heat. I know you like keeping cool, Big C. You like your libations on ice. In the NHL, after week 1 of the season, there's still 5 teams that are winless. The Atlantic Division, Ottawa Senators, they're 0-2. Metropolitan Division, New Jersey Devils, they're 0-2-1. The Western Central Division, Chicago Blackhawks 0-1. Minnesota Wild are 0-2. In the Pacific Division, the Arizona Coyotes are 0-2. And the San Jose Sharks are 0-4. I'm sure that a shark could eat a coyote as long as it's in the water. If it's on land, the coyote has a chance, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the coyote is going to feast if he's got him on land, and sharks don't do too well in frozen water anyway, Jonathan, and they've been struggling at the start of this season.
It's all fair, love, and war. I know we have so much going on in sports, and I really love bringing it to you around the sports universe. And it's something important to me. It's a sad dog that won't wag his own tail, and I know some people ask, Charlton, why do you guys bring up so much about politics? And also, you know, everything that deals with business and politics. It's all fair in love and war. On October the 10th, this is back in 1990, a front page special report, Big C, in the New York Times, October 10th, 1990. It had a headline that generated a lot of, I guess you could say, good and bad publicity, and they spread debate around the country about the inspirational black history that draws academic fire. Because when people talk about black history, they think it's anathema to white history. That's not. They think it's too Afrocentric. It's not. Well, this is what a lot of politicians and people in the school business was saying, you know, educational system, that when you talk about African American history, there's so many people that think we're leaving out multiculturalism, that we're simply focused on African American history, and that's not true. But even a lot of curriculum prior to the 1960s civil rights movement, where you had Brown versus Board of Education and Plessy versus Ferguson, you were led to believe, as far as black students, that we had no, I guess, play or importance in the development of civilization. And when we talk about it, it's called Afrocentrism. But what people have to realize, Big C, is prior to the 1960s, we had Eurocentric views in history taught in college and high schools all over this great country. And they mostly learned about Greece and Rome. And then it shifted to Europe. But when you think about the rich cultures of the world, from Africa, Asia, in the East, in India, and elsewhere, that was largely untaught. I'll close with this. The article was structured to show that before we had Afrocentric history, we were always taught Eurocentric history. It intentionally left out the accomplishments of black Americans all over the world, Big C. So I love being a part of Big C Sports that brings it up, because the New York Times also did an article about it October 10th, 1990. Why is it so important that we wag our own tails, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, if you look at black history, it's been omitted from all history books in America. If you after slavery and after the Civil War, African Americans were omitted from all record books as far as being involved in American society and the building of America. Going through school, you never heard about black innovation in America. It just didn't exist. They never told you how black Americans were the backbones of American invention, American construction, American politics, American medicine. It was thought that black Americans had no injection into white society in America. Yet they were there in the forefront side by side. Black Americans were part of the NASA program. Black Americans fought in all the wars, but they were omitted from the history books. Black Americans had many advancements in medical technology.
Yeah.
We didn't know that. But as the computers came along, they no longer could hide these advancements of African Americans, Charlton, and had to recognize that they were an integral part of the building of America.
Yeah.
And still today, they are not given the credit for all their accomplishments.
Yeah, so I love saying Google it. You can Google Afrocentrism. You can Google Eurocentrism. But make sure you Google all life came from the continent of Africa, Dr. Leakey Gregor-Mendo. That's so important. I don't want us to just be pigeonholed as athletes. Big C, look at how big and strong and tall and fast that guy is. You're going to hear it all over the NBA. Look at how high he can jump. Oh, look at how fast he can run. No, we're intellectual, not just physical. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we're going to get a finals in ALCS tonight, Charlton. Who's going to be facing the New York Yankees come next week? Will it be the Houston Astros? Will it be the Tampa Bay Rays? With the Astros sitting cold to the mound tonight, I'm going to have to bet on the Astros and get some of that barbecue out of Texas as they venture up to New York and get some of those deep dish pizzas.
Well, I hope I can send back my Magma hat to you, Big C. In fact, I bought it from a dollar store, and it's actually, my head's turning red, Big C. I guess the material's not always there, but you can turn red too, red, white, and blue, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.